The truth is, life doesn't break us in one big moment. It breaks us slowly, in silent ways. One failure, one rejection, one setback that makes us feel like we're not enough. And if you've ever felt like giving up after falling down, then this story is for you, because what I'm about to share might change the way you see your hardest moments forever. Imagine this. You work hard for something. You give it your time, your energy, your heart. And then suddenly it doesn't work out. The plan collapses. The dream feels distant. And for a moment, you just sit there thinking, what now? So that feeling is heavy. It's uncomfortable. It's frustrating. And it's something every single person experiences, whether they admit it or not. Setbacks are not rare. They're not unusual. They are part of being human. But the real question is, how do you bounce back when life knocks you down? How do you find strength when you feel empty? How do you restart when everything inside you wants to stop? Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Daniel. He wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. He was just a regular guy with a regular dream. Daniel wanted to start his own small business. He worked for years at a job that didn't excite him, saving money little by little. He stayed up late watching videos, learning, planning, imagining the day he could finally say, I did it, and then took the leap. He quit his job, invested his savings, and opened his business. At first, everything felt amazing. He was excited, felt proud. Every morning, he woke up with hope. But then reality showed up. Sales were slow. Customers didn't come like he expected. Bills started piling up. Stress grew heavier every day. Daniel tried harder and harder, but nothing seemed to change. And then one night, after months of struggle, he realized he couldn't keep going. He had to close down. Just like that. His dream collapsed. Daniel didn't just lose a business. He lost confidence. He lost his identity. He felt ashamed. He felt like a failure. And that is what setbacks really do. They don't just affect your situation. They affect your soul. Daniel spent weeks in silence. He avoided people. He stopped believing in himself. Every thought inside his head sounded like this: you're not good enough. You tried and you failed. You'll never succeed. But then something happened. One day Daniel was sitting at a park, watched a little kid learning how to ride a bicycle. The kid kept falling again and again. The father kept picking him up, dusting him off, smiling, saying, try again. And the kid did. He fell, got up, fell, got up, until finally he rode. Daniel sat there quietly, and something hit him deep inside. The kid wasn't embarrassed. The kid wasn't ashamed. The kid wasn't thinking, I'm a failure. He was thinking, I'm learning. And that's when Daniel realized something powerful. Setbacks don't mean you're finished. They mean you're in the middle of becoming. That moment changed everything. Because bouncing back isn't about never falling. It's about refusing to stay down. And that is what today's video is all about. Here on Englishshortandstories, we share stories that remind you of your strength, even when life feels heavy. And if this message already connects with you, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because more stories like this are coming that could truly change your mindset. Now let's go deeper, because the truth is, setbacks can either destroy you or develop you. It all depends on what you do next. The first thing you have to understand is this: pain is not punishment. Pain is preparation. Most people think setbacks are signs that they are on the wrong path. But what if they are actually signs that you are growing? Think about it. Every strong person you admire has been through failure. Every successful person has felt defeated. Every confident person has doubted themselves. Difference is, they kept moving forward. Setbacks are life's way of asking, how badly do you want it? When Daniel lost his business, it wasn't the end of his story. It was the moment his real story began. Because one day, after sitting with his disappointment long enough, he decided, I can either let this break me, or I can let this build me. So he started small. It's not with another business, not with another big dream, but with his mindset. He started waking up early again. He started taking walks. He started writing down lessons from his failure. He asked himself, what did this experience teach me? And slowly the pain turned into wisdom. That is the secret. The fastest way to bounce back is not to pretend the setback didn't happen, but to learn from it. Failure is not final, it's feedback. And when you begin to see setbacks as feedback, you stop fearing them. You start using them. Daniel realized that his first business didn't fail because he was worthless. It failed because he was inexperienced. He didn't understand marketing, didn't manage money well, he didn't ask for help. These were lessons, not life sentences. And once he understood that, something inside him awakened. He wasn't done, he was just getting started. Let me tell you something very real. Some of the most successful people in history were once people who lost everything. Steve Jobs got fired from his own company. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Imagine that. People who became legends were once rejected. So if you're going through a setback right now, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not alone. You're not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. But bouncing back requires one important thing. You must stop identifying yourself by your setback. You are not your failure. You're not your mistake. You are not the thing that went wrong. You're the person who can rise again. Daniel learned that healing doesn't happen overnight. Confidence doesn't return in one day. It's a process. It's like rebuilding a house brick by brick. Some days you feel strong. Some days you feel weak. But every day you keep going, you grow. And that is bouncing back. Not a sudden comeback, but a steady return. And here's something most people don't understand. Setbacks often redirect you to something better. Sometimes life closes a door because that wasn't your final destination. Sometimes what feels like an ending is actually protection. Daniel eventually started a new business 2 years later, which this time he was wiser. He took courses. He asked mentors. He planned carefully, and because of what he went through, succeeded. Not because he avoided failure, but because he survived it. Setbacks can do one of two things. They can make you bitter, or they can make you better. The choice is always yours. And maybe today, life has knocked you down. Maybe you lost something. Maybe you feel like you're starting over. Maybe you're scared. But listen, starting over is not weakness. Starting over is strength. It means you still believe life can be better. It means you haven't given up. And that alone makes you powerful. Sometimes, the hardest part of a setback isn't what happened outside of you. It's what happens inside of you. The quiet voice that starts whispering late at night. The thoughts that say, maybe I'm not meant for this. The fear that your best days are already behind you. Daniel faced that too. Even after he decided to move forward, there were mornings he woke up and still felt the weight of failure sitting on his chest. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, it was just heavy. And that's the truth about setbacks. They don't always knock you down with one big punch. Sometimes they slowly drain your motivation. Sometimes they make you question yourself. And sometimes they make you feel like everyone else is moving ahead while you're stuck at the starting line. But here's something powerful. Being stuck doesn't mean you're done. It means you're paused. And a pause is not the same as an ending. Daniel began to understand that healing after a setback is like recovering after an injury. You don't run immediately. First you rest. Then you rebuild. Then you grow stronger. And that is what bouncing back really looks like. Not rushing yourself. Not forcing yourself, but guiding yourself back to life, step by step. One day, Daniel met an older man at a local coffee shop. They started talking casually, and somehow, the conversation shifted toward life and failure. Daniel admitted quietly, "I tried something big. I failed." The older man smiled gently and said, "That's interesting." Daniel looked confused. "Interesting," the man nodded. "Yes, because most people never even try." Then he leaned forward and said something. Daniel never forgot. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of success. That line stayed in Daniel's mind for weeks. Because it was true, success is not a straight road. It's messy. It's full of wrong turns, full of detours. It's full of falls. But every setback is shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more ready. And the moment you realize that, you stop seeing setbacks as proof that you can't. And you start seeing them as proof that you're trying.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how we treat ourselves differently than we treat others? If a friend fails, we say, "It's okay. You'll figure it out." But when we fail, we say, "I'm not good enough." That's not fair. You deserve the same compassion you give everyone else. So one of the biggest steps in bouncing back is learning how to speak to yourself like someone you love, because your comeback begins in your mind. Daniel started practicing something simple. Every time a negative thought came, he replaced it with a better one. Instead of "I failed," he said, "I learned." Instead of "I'm behind," he said, "I'm growing." Instead of "It's over," he said, "This is a new chapter." And slowly, his confidence returned. Not all at once, but little by little. That's how bouncing back works. Like the sunrise, it doesn't happen instantly. But eventually, the light returns. And here's another truth. Setbacks often reveal who you really are. When everything is easy, anyone can smile. When things are going well, anyone can feel strong. But when life gets hard, that's when your true character is built. The strongest people are not people who never struggled. They are people who refuse to quit in the middle of struggle. Daniel began to realize that the setback didn't ruin him. It revealed him. It showed him that he was still standing, still breathing, still capable of rebuilding. And so are you, no matter what happened. If you're here listening to this, that means your story isn't finished. Sometimes, bouncing back means accepting that life will not look the way you planned, but it can still look beautiful. Think about a tree after a storm. Branches break, leaves fall, but the tree doesn't give up. It waits. It heals, and then, in time, it grows again. That is you. You may feel broken right now, but you are not done growing. Another thing Daniel learned was this: you cannot bounce back alone. We are not meant to carry pain in silence. So many people suffer quietly, thinking they must be strong all by themselves. But strength isn't hiding your struggles. Strength is being honest about them. Daniel finally opened up to a close friend. He shared how ashamed he felt, how scared he was to start again. And his friend said something simple: "I'm proud of you for trying." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Because sometimes, what we need most is not advice, but reassurance. So if you are going through a setback,
Talk to someone, a friend, a family member, mentor. Even writing your feelings down can help, because keeping pain trapped inside only makes it heavier. And remember, asking for support is not weakness, it's wisdom. Bouncing back is easier when you don't do it alone. Daniel started surrounding himself with people who inspired him instead of people who judged him. He watched stories of others who failed and came back stronger. And that's why storytelling is so powerful. Because when you hear someone else's comeback, you start believing in your own. That's exactly why Englishshortandstories exists. To remind you through stories that setbacks are not the end, they are the beginning of something stronger. Now let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes people make after setbacks. They wait to feel ready before starting again. But the truth is, you will never feel completely ready. Confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence comes from action. Daniel didn't wake up one day suddenly fearless. He started moving forward while still feeling afraid. That's courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's taking the next step anyway. Even if it's small, even if it's messy, even if you're unsure. A small step forward is still forward. Maybe your comeback right now isn't a huge achievement. Maybe it's simply getting out of bed. Maybe it's sending one email. Maybe it's applying again. Maybe it's trying one more time. It counts. Do not underestimate small progress. Small progress becomes big progress over time. Life rewards consistency more than perfection. Daniel used to think success meant never failing. Now he understood success meant never quitting. Because the only real failure is giving up completely. Life will knock you down again. That's unavoidable. But every time you rise, you become stronger. You become more experienced. You become more unstoppable. And one day you will look back and realize that setback was the moment you became who you are. There comes a moment in every setback where you realize something important. You can't change what happened, but you can choose what happens next. Daniel reached that moment one quiet evening. He was sitting alone in his room, scrolling through old photos from the time he first opened his business. Pictures of him smiling, hopeful, excited. And for a second, he felt that familiar pain rise again. Regret. sadness, that heavy thought. I wish I could go back, but then he stopped. And he asked himself a different question. Not, why did this happen to me? But what is this trying to teach me? That question changed everything. Because the people who bounce back aren't the ones who never feel pain. They are the ones who turn pain into purpose. Setbacks are not just interruptions. They are invitations. Invitations to grow, to improve, to become someone stronger than the person you were before. Daniel began reading books about resilience. He started learning about how the mind works. He discovered something fascinating. Your brain believes what you repeat. So if you keep repeating, I'm a failure, your brain will accept it as truth. But if you repeat, I'm rebuilding, your brain begins to find ways forward. This is why mindset is everything, because bouncing back begins with belief, even a small belief, even a quiet belief. Just enough to say, maybe I can try again. Daniel didn't know exactly how his future would look, but he stopped needing certainty, started needing movement, and that's a lesson for all of us. You don't need to see the whole staircase, just take the next step. Sometimes life doesn't give you a clear map. Sometimes it only gives you courage, and courage is enough. Another powerful lesson Daniel learned was forgiveness. Not forgiving others, forgiving himself. Carried so much guilt. I should have done better. I should have known more. I should have succeeded. But here's the truth. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Growth means you now know more. So don't punish your past self for being human. Your setback is not something to be ashamed of. It is proof you were brave enough to try. Most people stay in comfort their whole lives, but you stepped out. You dared. And that is something to respect. Daniel finally said out loud, I forgive myself. And something inside him softened. Because self-forgiveness is the beginning of peace. You cannot bounce back while still holding hatred toward yourself.
You need compassion. You need patience. You need grace. The comeback is not supposed to be cruel. It is supposed to be healing. Daniel began taking care of himself again. He started exercising, eating better, and sleeping more. And these small actions reminded him, I matter. Setbacks often make people neglect themselves, but taking care of yourself is an act of resistance. It is you saying, my life still has value. And it does. Then, something unexpected happened. Daniel received a call from someone who had once been one of his customers. The person said, Hey, I remember your business. I always liked your work. Are you doing anything new these days? Daniel hesitated. He almost said no. I failed. But instead, he said, I'm working on starting again. The person replied, Good. Let me know when you do. I'd support you. Daniel hung up the phone and just sat there, stunned, because he realized something. People weren't judging him as harshly as he judged himself. Most people don't see your failure. They see your courage. They see your effort. They see your humanity. And that is freeing. Sometimes setbacks make us feel like the world is watching and laughing. But the truth is, the world respects those who rise again. Daniel kept moving forward, months passed, and slowly, opportunities began showing up. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because Daniel became stronger. That's what bouncing back does. It doesn't always change your world instantly. It changes you. And when you change, your world changes too. Then came the day Daniel decided to try again. Not impulsive, not desperately, but wisely. He didn't start with a huge risk. He started small. A side project. A simple plan, one step. And this time, he wasn't doing it to prove anything to others. He was doing it because he believed in himself again. And that belief was everything. Let me tell you something important. Your setbacks don't disqualify you. They prepare you. Your hardest moments are shaping your strongest self. Right now, you might feel like you're falling behind. But maybe you're being redirected. Maybe life is guiding you towards something more aligned. Maybe what you lost was making space for something greater. You cannot see it yet. But one day, you will.
Daniel's second attempt was different. He didn't chase perfection. He chased progress. He didn't fear mistakes. He expected them. He didn't see obstacles as signs to stop. He saw them as signs to adapt. And slowly, he started succeeding. And not overnight, not magically, but steadily. And the success felt deeper this time because it was built on resilience. It's built on lessons. It's built on growth. And Daniel realized the setback wasn't the enemy. Giving up would have been, because setbacks are part of the journey, not the end of it. So if you are listening right now, and you are in the middle of a setback, I want you to remember this. You are not starting from zero. You are starting from experience. You have learned, you have grown, you are capable of rising again. You don't need to rush. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep going. One step at a time and one day. You will look back and be proud that you didn't quit. Daniel's life didn't become perfect. It's something people don't talk about enough. Even after he started succeeding again, challenges still came. There were still hard days, still doubts, still moments where fear whispered, "What if it happens again?" But the difference was, Daniel was no longer the same person. The setback had changed him, not by destroying him, but by shaping him. He had learned something that only struggle can teach. You can survive what you thought would break you. When you know that, you stop being afraid of falling, because you trust your ability to rise. That is the real bounce back. It's not about controlling life. It's about becoming stronger than life's storms. One day, Daniel was invited to speak to a small group of young people who wanted to start their own dreams. They asked him, "What's the secret to success?" Daniel paused for a moment. Then he said something simple. "The secret is not that I never failed. The secret is that I didn't stop after I failed." The room went quiet, because deep down, everyone knows. Failure is part of life. The real tragedy is not failure. The real tragedy is quitting. Daniel looked around and continued, "Your setbacks will feel like endings, but they are often beginnings in disguise. They are life's way of building your strength. And that's the truth. Every setback carries a lesson. Every fall carries growth. Every painful chapter carries purpose, if you let it. Maybe your setback right now is losing a job. Maybe it's a breakup. Maybe it's a dream that didn't work. It's personal failure you can't stop thinking about. Whatever it is.
Hear me clearly. This is not the end of your story. This is the part where your story becomes deeper, because comebacks are always more powerful than beginnings. Anyone can start, but only the strong continue after falling. So what does bouncing back really require? It requires honesty. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it was hard. Yes, you didn't expect it, but you are still here, and that means something. It requires patience. Healing takes time. Rebuilding takes time. Growth takes time. But time will pass anyway, so keep moving forward as it does. It requires courage, not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that wakes up and tries again. And most of all, it requires belief. Not belief that everything will be easy, but belief that you can handle what comes. Because you can. Daniel's setback didn't make him weaker, it made him wiser. And your setback can do the same. One day, Daniel visited that same park again. The park where he once watched the child learning to ride a bike. This time, he sat on the bench with a calm smile. He realized life never promised a smooth path. Life promised a meaningful one. And meaning often comes through struggle. He thought about how close he came to giving up, how close he came to believing the setback was the end, and he felt grateful. Not for the pain, but for what the pain revealed. Sometimes the hardest seasons create the strongest souls, and maybe that's what your setback is doing right now. Creating strength in you, even if you don't see it yet. So here is what I want you to take with you today. You are not your worst moment. You are not your mistake. You are not the thing that went wrong. You are the person who can rise again, and no setback can take that away. Your comeback doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be steady. Keep going, keep breathing, keep trying. One step, then another, then another. And one day, you will realize you made it through. And if this story spoke to you today, I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me, what setback are you trying to bounce back from right now? Your words might inspire someone else who feels alone. And don't forget to share this video with a friend who needs encouragement today, because you never know who is silently struggling. Thank you for spending this time with Englishshortandstories. Remember, your setback is not your ending. It is your setup for a stronger return. Stay strong. Your story is still being written.